Greetings all, this is more of a speculative episode of D&Disability. 5e's new system has become quite infamously antagonistic toward DMs. I'm left asking, is this fair? The DM is the person who schedules, adjudicates, writes, and runs the games. Does a system need to favor the DM in order to help compensate for these responsibilities? Thank you to the rules lawyer for the video idea, and I encourage you to go watch his video on D&D 5e, disregards DMs, martial stroke caster divide, etc., etc. And one more point here, if the audio sounds off today, I'm using a slightly different recording sound setup, so please forgive me. Everything will be back to normal next week.
What specific thing did they do now? I mean, I'm sure there's a bunch, but can we get an example?
Yeah, it's best to lead with one, I think, and I can give one example of many. And this probably isn't the best example because most people don't really play above 7th level statistically, though I think that's a lie in the sense that the average age of the medieval period is a lie, right? People lived past 35 in the 10th or 12th or 13th century. People play past 7th level in D&D. But that said, let's use an example the rules lawyer brought up. I think it demonstrates the main problem pretty well. It's the level 14 devious strikes ability for the thief. I mean, rogue. Sorry, rogue. That's what they call them now, because there's totally a difference. Devious strikes further expands upon the new 2024 cunning strike options, including daze, cost them 2d6 of their sneak attack. If the target fails a constitution saving throw, they can only move or take an action or bonus action on their next turn. Knockout costs 66. If your target fails a constitution saving throw, they are knocked unconscious for 1 minute. They are able to repeat the saving throw at the end of each of their turns. And then Obscure costs 3d6. Your target needs to make a dexterity saving throw or be blinded until the end of its next turn. Needless to say, any of these is a death sentence for a monster. All three of these options set up the rogue for future sneak attacks, which is good. However, they set the entire party up to beat on the monster, while the monster can do nothing about it. Effectively, the result of this fight can come down to a single die roll, with the rest of the fight amounting to the party beating the creature over the head with a brick. Alternatively, you can design a game like Deathbringer, Morkborg, Shadow Dark, Call of Cthulhu, and others to give the players fewer abilities, but put the power back in the hands of DMs. Because to be clear, while this is a high-level ability, this effectively means, oh look, your giant has been knocked out, your giant has been blinded, your giant or dragon has been dazed. And now, because of these restrictions, there are going to be more sneak attacks, everybody's going to get automatic critical hits on them, and it's going to be a very big time and effectively removes big single monsters from play, which I know is not the be-all, end-all here, guys. However, this really isn't kind to DMs.
Well, this just seems to be a problem with save or suck mechanics. If the affected players, shouldn't they affect monsters too?
That is kind of the core question, isn't it? While 5e has legendary resistances to help compensate for this problem, eventually one of those save or suck abilities will land. There are examples of this with spells, warlock invocations, and more. In a sense, the new 5e system allows a party to utilize and stack abilities to stop monsters from being able to do anything. This is just one example, and here's the thing, it's not fun for the DM. I'm going to give a counterexample real quick with how a different game system handles this problem, because it's easily doable. Let's take Darkest Dungeon, right? My favorite roguelike, it's sort of an RPG dungeon crawl, but really it's more of like hero management. Anyway, you all know what Darkest Dungeon is, I'm sure. So how do they solve this problem? Well, stunning an opponent in Darkest Dungeon lasts for 1 round. That's it. Period. End of story. And once the enemy has been stunned, they gain a 50% resistance buff to being stunned again. So you are 50% less likely to stun them again. What does this do? This means your party denies them an action, but you can't deny them repeated action. And while that might not solve the problem of, say, the giant dying in 2 turns because everybody gangs up on him and beats him to death, also because that same giant in, say, Darkest Dungeon would be given multiple actions to utilize, not just one swing of his big old club.
I mean, yeah, the DM is expected to lose 1,000 battles, die 1,000 times, throw monsters in encounters that are doomed to fail because they want heroes to succeed. So, what's the problem? Isn't this just giving the players an "I win" button? Oh, I get it now.
Yeah, my argument is that D&D will cease to be fun for both players and DMs because of these new rules. If the DM's monsters can't do anything all the time, because the fighter has abilities that can stun monsters, the warlock has abilities that can stun monsters, the thief has abilities that can stun monsters, the wizard, obviously, right? Then there's no fight at all. If there's not an honest chance that the party can be threatened.
So, where's the fun in that?
Right? So, what's the solution? Well, the way I see it, there are a couple of things a DM can do and game designers can do. One is just give the DM more of an advantage. Maybe make the monster fail to save by 5 or more to make them fail to save at all, or make them fail to save 2 times in a row. Maybe just make it simple, and boss monsters are immune to these kind of effects. I mean, 5e, when it started, had these kind of effects. The save by 5 or more mechanic was great. You know, if you failed by 5 or more to a Medusa, you were turned to stone. If you failed by 5 or more to a Gorgon or to a Basilisk, you were turned to stone. Otherwise, you were slowed. And so these kind of mechanics do have precedent being used against players. Why not have them used against monsters as well?
I know if I was running 5e as is, I'd have to use overwhelming numbers or maybe some other tactic to make the encounters threatening. As it stands, it seems like having one big monster is off the table.
And I might, in fact, title this video 5e D&D can't use big monsters anymore because of the new rules. It's been this way for some time. This is nothing new. You know, the days of a party going and slaying Grendel, as in Grendel actually being a threat, have been over pretty much since D&D started. Think about it this way. A group of 4 or 6 level 1 heroes and a couple of henchmen can go and slay an ogre. They could, if they really want to. You know, yeah, a few of them are going to die as soon as the ogre swings the club, but they still kill the ogre. And so I typically take the Matt Colville approach with big monsters, and really so should you. Give your single enemies extra attacks, AoE effects, and positioning control. You don't have to lay them out round by round like he does, because frankly, those plans never work out very well because no plan survives contact with the players, I mean the enemy. But really, we must do even more here. They have to be immune to certain spells and abilities, and if not immune, then those abilities must affect your monsters in some lesser way. Slow them instead of stun them, as an example. I mean, really, is not playing the game fun for anyone?
Right. And the game has to be fun for the DM. I mean, without the DM, what are the players going to do? Use AI?
Well, yeah, actually.
Oh, you're kidding.
No, I wish I was. I really do. But Hasbro doubling down on AI is a topic for another day. I'll let more pop culture, D&D news channels cover that kind of thing. My channel doesn't really do that. I would recommend going to Dungeon Craft or The Rules Lawyer or whoever else for that kind of news. If you want me to cover some stuff like that and start digging into what AI could do for D&D, let me know. I am an educator, and I am kind of forced to look at AI in terms of what it can do for education, both the good and the bad. So I could give my thoughts on that if that's something you're interested in.
Well, I ain't no educator, but I do like educating monsters as to get out of my way. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to hear more about disability, history, and game-related content.
What do you think? Does the DM enjoyment matter? Should the rules as written actively try and frustrate or make the DM's lives harder. We've only scratched the surface here because I'm trying to keep this video quite short. I'm sure there are dozens of other situations that 5e makes it hard. Go ahead, leave a comment down below and let me know what things frustrate you. Thanks, guys.